Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Starry Night Christmas, and I'm going to be sipping on my hot cocoa. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, ultramarine blue, Mars black, green oxide, fluorescent orange, fire red, and chrome yellow. And of course you can switch up those colors too if you'd like, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I am going to be using a 1/2 inch wide flat bristle brush, a number 10 round synthetic brush, and a number 1 round synthetic brush. And I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. And of course you can switch those up as well if you'd like to. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you throughout your painting process. One of them is a link where you can purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the large canvas to the same type of paint and brushes and all the good stuff in between, so that's there for you. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what I'm going to be doing for the first step is I'm going to be painting the background blue. I'm going to be using my large brush, and I'm going to be using just blue paint. So I'm going to be doing probably 2 coats on this, but because I'm using a thin student grade paint, but if you're using a nice thick heavy bodied paint, you may be able to get away with just 1 coat of the color on there. I'm using just a kind of left to right crisscross type of motion. I don't need my background to be smooth because we're going to be putting so many details on top of this, so don't feel the pressure to get the entire background smooth. But if you wanted to, you could do a nice continual left to right brush stroke, and then you could do, 2 layers, or just do it nice and smoothly that way. But I'm going to kind of do mine a little bit on the abstract or unsmooth side, because I know it's going to add to the background and make it look nice and dimensional and have lots of character to it. So I'm going to go ahead and get this background on with blue, and if I feel that I want to do another layer to it, I certainly will, just to intensify that color a little bit. But if yours works out well with just 1 layer, you can certainly just go with it as is. And then once you've got this background layer on, we will be using the medium brush for the next step. So I'm just going to kind of continue on with this crisscross, and I'll probably let mine dry for a minute and perhaps put a second coat, but if I like the way that it looks with just 1 coat, I will leave it as is. And when your background's done, you can put this large brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. Alright, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be outlining the hills and the little tree tops that are down in the village. I'm going to be using my medium brush, and I'm going to be using white and black paint. I do want to forewarn you that it will be a little bit easier on you for this step if you do it with your canvas dry. So this is that time where you get to, take that extra long break if you'd like to. Or you can find some kind of fun fanning method to get it dry, or you can do as I did and just whip out your blow dryer to get it dry. So whatever way works best for you is totally fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a couple of markers, and then we'll just connect the markers and we'll have a loose interpretation of the landscape of the Starry Night painting. So I'm going to load my brush with white paint. And just keep in mind, we're just having fun and doing a loose interpretation of this. It doesn't have to be exact. Mine's not even going to be exactly like the original painting. So what I'm going to do is on the right hand side, I'm going to make myself a marker that's a little bit higher than the halfway point. So if this is about halfway up or down your canvas, you'll come about 2 inches above that. Give yourself a little bit of a marker. And then on the left hand side, if this is about halfway up or down your canvas, I'm about 2 to 2.5 inches below that. I'm going to connect these 2 markers with a roly-poly hill. I'm going to have it dipping down no lower than here. So I'm going to come up a little bit of a hill, kind of ride it almost, you know, pretty level until I get about halfway, and then I'm just going to make a whole bunch of roly-poly hills leading up to the other one. So I'm going to start over here, give myself a little bit of a hill somewhere in through here, and then just kind of ride it in a gentle kind of fashion almost halfway to the middle of my canvas. And then I'll start giving myself these little hills coming on up until I meet that one. So we got 1, maybe 2, maybe a little bit bigger of a one in through here, and then just kind of rolling it up to this last hill in through here. And your line does not have to be perfect or solid or thin. It doesn't matter. This is just going to be for an outline. I'm then going to wash my brush. So wash and dry your brush. And then I'm going to pick up some black paint. And for the next set of hills, I'm going to come down from here, maybe about 3 inches, give myself a little bit of a marker in through there. And then on the left hand side, I'm going to come down about 2.5 inches from here, give myself a little marker. This is going to be another roly-poly hill, but the part on the top right hand side is going to be very identifiable to the original painting. It's like this pointy, I don't know if it was a building like a cathedral or something, or a rock formation, but it kind of has a little bit of a point, and then it dips down, and then there's a little bit of a point that comes out here and it dips back, and then there's a little bit of a bump of sorts in through there, and now it just kind of rides out and gives a couple of little hills, one in through there, a big one in through here, and then it dips down a little bit, giving another hill in through there. And then this is all going to disappear behind our Christmas tree, and then I'll give a little hill over here on the end, something like that. Just reloading my brush with some black paint, going to do another little series of hills. I'm going to come down from here, maybe about 2.5 inches in through there. And then on the right side, I'm about 1/2 inch to 1 inch down from here. I'm going to connect these two, but this hill will kind of join with this one somewhere in through here, and then it's just roly-poly from there on out. So I kind of come up, join this hill in through here, and then from here, I'm just going to do a whole bunch of little roly-poly hills. We'll give it something like this. I think this is going to come down and through here and up, and then we'll just kind of ride this out with a couple of little hills in through there. And then the last thing that we're going to do is a whole bunch of little arcing motions like this. They're just half circles. I'm going to do a big area down in this bottom right hand corner. These are the impressionistic kind of starts to the treetops or bushes that are down within the little village. So there's a big section down in this bottom right hand corner, and then it kind of comes over in through this direction, and they're very chaotic. They're just kind of like the top side of a circle, so don't feel the need to make them anything perfect. There was little clusters of these all throughout the village landscape. There's going to be a church and some buildings and stuff, so feel free to just kind of make a chaotic section of those down and through there. And then I'm going to do another little section of them down in this bottom left hand corner. And again, just these little kind of half circle, top half circles. They're messy, they cross over one another. And then once you've got that all done, we will be using the same brush for the next step, so you can just wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint ourselves some stars. So I'm going to be using my medium brush, and the colors that I'm using are white, yellow, and orange. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to lay them out in a similar pattern to the original painting. There were 12 stars in the original painting, and the largest of them being up in this top right hand corner or middle of the sky on the right hand side. So when I'm doing this, I'm going to be placing them in a similar pattern, but I'm also going to be considering where I'm putting my fun Christmas tree. So I'm going to have my Christmas tree in through here. So when I get to the stars that are around here, I'm going to kind of strategically leave myself an opening for my tree. So you can do the same. If not, you might end up covering up one or two of your stars. So I'm loading my brush with white paint. I'm going to start with like the bigger ones kind of first, because that helps me to place them in good positions, and then I'll do my smaller ones afterwards. So I'm starting with my big huge one over in through here. I load my brush with a good amount of white paint, and these are intended to be really loose and wispy along the edges. So I start with a pretty solid circle in the middle with a good amount of paint in the middle. And then what I do is I just kind of, as I'm going out towards the edges, I don't reload my brush. I'm just kind of letting myself kind of run out of paint, and you can even skip it along a little bit so it's not one continual line. This will blend into your wind later, but this is just kind of giving you that initial kind of center of your star, making it big and bright and bold, and then getting the white to kind of give the glow around that star as well. So I'm going to do that similarly to the other one. So I have another pretty big one up here in the upper left corner. So again, just starting with a good amount of white paint on my brush, and going to let it kind of dissipate along the edges. By the time you want it to be soft around those edges, if you still feel like you have too much paint on your brush, just wipe your brush off on your paper towel, and then just give yourself these kind of skipping lines around the edges with a solid kind of white center to it. That solid white center is going to allow us to get it nice and bright when we go to put the color on it. My next big one is going to be right about here. So if this is the center of my canvas, I'm a little bit to the left of that for this one, and it's pretty close to the landscape itself, that hill, and it's a pretty big one. This one to me is a little bit bigger than that one in the actual painting, so I'm going to do a pretty good size, and part of this one will be hidden by my tree. You might want yours to be showing all the way, but I'm going to let mine be a little bit hidden by my tree. So I'm going to just kind of get that on there. And then the rest are going to be kind of smaller. I've got two that sit over in through here. So I'm going to put one right about here, a little bit higher than the top of here. And then there's a teeny one in through here. And then I'll just kind of let my brush kind of give the soft edges to it. And don't worry if you don't get it perfect. We're going to be doing, when we do the wind around our sky, you can totally use that to enhance these stars and make them all fun and all that good stuff. So I'm going to put another one up from here. If you go directly up from the center of here, a little bit higher than these ones, and over to the left. This one's just a little teeny tiny one, so just going to give myself a little tiny one. I'll soften that edge in a minute. Now that I'm going to the smaller ones, I can kind of make a few of them at a time, so I'm not worrying about too much paint on my brush. My next one's going to come somewhere in this vicinity, right about here. It's a little bit bigger than that one. Then I've got another one up in this vicinity. So right now, just kind of making some circles. I've got this one right about here. This one's going to be a little bit bigger. I've got another one right about here. So this one's in this direction, something like that. I'll give the little skippy edges in a minute. I've got another one right about here. So this one's going to be somewhere in through here. And then I have another small one somewhere around here. So just got to do my math check here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, I've got the 12 that I need. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to soften the edges of these little guys, something like this. I don't have much paint on my brush, just kind of allowing for this little skippy textured edges around them, which is going to allow them to look like they've got a little bit of a glow around them. And again, they don't have to be perfect. Maybe you want yours to have your own style to them and have yours be much cleaner and have, you know, crisp edges to it. So feel free to make this your own. I mean, I'm making it into a holiday one, and I don't think, you know, it's definitely not in tradition with the originals, so you can certainly have fun with, you know, spinning yours into whatever you want. So once you've got that done, I just wipe my brush off on my paper towel. I'm picking up some yellow paint. I'm going to put a yellow kind of glow highlight in all of my stars. So the yellow on top of the white is going to make it look really, really bright and bold. And I'm just kind of spinning it out. The footprint of my yellow is a little bit smaller than my white, so I have a little bit extra white around the edges. And I'm just going to kind of do it in a similar order to how I put them on, because that way I know that they've dried, or they're a little bit drier, those first ones that I did. So something like that. And I don't really need to do much here, just kind of spinning a little bit of that yellow in there. And if you find that your white is too wet and this isn't being very successful for you, that's okay. Just give it a second to dry, and you can certainly put that on top of it. Then without washing my brush, I picked up a little bit of orange paint. So this orange is going to be a little kind of dot center in these stars. The original painting, I think, had more of like a rusty red color, but again, we're just going for our own fun interpretation. This one here, I'm going to put a little bit of the orange. We're going to put a big center star on, like a star burst on top of it later, but right now I'm just kind of putting the foundation on here. We will put some other details on this one later. So we're just going to kind of get this one to be nice and fun right now with these colors, and then later we'll be amping it up a bit. And then once you've got your stars done, we're going to utilize this same brush for the next step, so you can wash it and dry it. If you feel like you want to do any little enhancements, like I just put a little more white in this one, feel free to do so. And you can wash and dry this medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint ourselves some wind. I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors that I'm going to be using are white, blue, black, and yellow. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to start it with the iconic kind of yin-yang type of motion that is in the middle of the original painting. And then we're going to just kind of dissipate our wind all around our stars. So I'm going to start with white paint, put everything in place, and then we'll add some color to it. So I've got white paint on my brush, and I'm going to be using just kind of long, continual, sketchy type of brush strokes. But I do want to plan out this first one. So I'm going to start somewhere over in this vicinity over here, and I'm going to have it coming above or between these two stars. It's going to come over here, almost to this guy over here, and then what it does is it kind of dips down, and it's going to wrap around like this. You don't have to do yours this way, but this is a similar thing to the original painting. And then there's a swirl over on this right side in through here. So I just bring this up in through here and then do a little swirl in through there. So now that I've got that in place, what I do is I kind of amp it up and make it thicker. So I'm going to start up in through here, and then I just kind of keep with this sketcherly type of line and keep bringing this until it is as wide as I want it to be and as kind of sketcherly as I want it to be. And if you end up making yours too solid of a line and you're like, oh my God, that's too thick of a line, don't worry, because we're going to add color to it in a minute, and that will help you to thin it out and make it look a little bit more carefree in a sense. But as I'm doing this in through here, you can see I'm just kind of working my brush in the direction of that original piece of wind that we created. So I'm giving it that iconic kind of just directional type of brush strokes that give it this beautiful, carefree, you know, energetic type of look that everybody, I think, loves so much in this painting, or in the original painting, I should say. And so now that I've got that area in through there, my next goal is to get this wind to kind of travel throughout the rest of the sky. So I'm really just going to start with some white paint, and to me, the wind travels around the stars. So if I've got these stars in through here and I've got a hill over here, I can just kind of maneuver that wind to work its way around these stars, so, and between them, of course. So I've got this kind of coming in through here, and I go for like just a directional left to right type of wind, like it's working its way between and through these stars and around the stars. You can very easily get this painting to the sky to look very confusing if your wind starts going in too many different directions. So I just try and keep my brain saying, okay, the wind's just going to kind of travel around these stars. So just let that kind of brush stroke or thought guide you to putting these marks in the painting. So I'm just continuing with these really light, sketchy lines that are bringing me all the way around the stars and up into the sky, just to kind of, you know, get some wind throughout the whole painting. And then once I've got it pretty much identified where I want the direction of all of my wind, and this white center, this big one in the center is really kind of the dominant one. Now I can start adding color to it. So there's a lot of blue, there's a little bit of yellow, there's a little bit of black, so you can really have fun with it. So I'm going to start with just some blue and white, just to kind of give myself like a light blue type of color within this windy, or the center area, and I'm all the while just using such a carefree brush stroke and allowing myself to let the movement of the wind just kind of guide me throughout the painting. I like that center being nice and dominant. Maybe we'll put a little bit of extra over here. Just fill in your spots. Fill in any gaps that you feel would work. I'm picking up a little bit of yellow and white. I did not wash my brush because I really want this all to just kind of talk together. So without washing my brush, picked up a little bit of yellow and white, putting that within the center swirl, so to speak. And then once I've got, you know, in through there, if I feel like I want it anywhere else, I can certainly put a little bit of yellow and white throughout the rest in through here. And then I'm going to put a tiny bit of black, but I need to wash my brush before I do that, because black and white would make gray, and I don't want to have gray on there. So I just washed my brush. I'm going to put a couple of little black streaks maybe up through this top, and maybe a couple in through here. I'll intermingle it with a little bit of blue, but the black just helps to add a little bit more depth within this sky. Makes it, I think, feel a little bit more nighttime. But it, you know, I've done many renditions of Starry Night with paint groups, and some people like the darkness, some people like the brightness. So wherever your, you know, eye wants to go and paintbrush wants to go, that's where you should bring it. I'm picking up a little bit more blue just so this black really looks like it works with everything else. And then that's pretty much all I'm going to do for my wind. If you feel like you want to do any little adjustments or make anything more dominant or more subtle, feel free to do so. And then once you've got your wind all nice and done, we are going to be using this same brush for the next step. So you can just wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our hills and these treetops. So I'm going to use my medium brush. The colors that I'm going to be using are blue, white, yellow, black, and green. So how I'm going to do this is, again, very carefree, abstract type of style, but this painting had a ton of movement in it. So we're going to be using these directional type of brush strokes. I'm going to start at the top and work my way down. This top hill, I'm going to start with white paint, and I'm going to be using these, again, carefree type of brush strokes, kind of guiding the viewer down the hill. And I'm going to have the white heavier at the top of the hill, and then it's going to kind of dissipate as it makes its way towards this black, towards the next hill, I should say. And so again, I'm just kind of using this directional brush stroke, bringing the viewer down these hills and over and off the canvas onto this side. And then again, I'm just kind of utilizing this white right now to give the motion or the direction of the hill, making sure that that top outline that we did is kind of disguised so it doesn't look like we had an outline there, and then just kind of bringing this down in a real carefree manner. Even if you hit that hill, the next hill, don't worry about it, because we can correct that when we go to paint in the next hill. I'd rather have you come and bump into it than to stay away from it and have a big gap in between the hills. So I'm just bringing this all the way down, but again, it's a little bit less paint down at the bottom. Now that I've got it on there, I'm going to start picking up some blue and white paint to give myself some of those blue type of tones within it. And because I'm using blue and white at the same time, what's happening is I've got some lighter blue tones on top of the darker blue tones from the original base coat that we did. And then I'm going to put a little bit of yellow and white in this hill as well. So have fun with however you want it to be, but I just picked up some yellow and white to get this almost like a little luminescent colors throughout this hill. And again, just guide that viewer down the hill with these arcing and directional type of brush strokes, leaving the top of the hill a little bit brighter and the bottom a little bit darker. And then once you've got this hill done, we're going to work on the next hill, which is going to be with blue, black, and white. So this area and through here, again, is going to be covered by a big tree, but I still like to kind of just paint it so I make sure I have a good connector piece coming on the opposing sides. And of course, you can tweak this all you want, but I'm going to wash and dry my brush for the next hill down. And again, the colors I'm going to use for the next hill are black, blue, and white. So I'm going to first make sure that I crisp up this line on the top, and I'm going to use that black. I have black on my brush. I'm going to use just a little bit of it to bring down these, again, almost like a stripe type of brush stroke that's going to tell the viewer the direction of this hill. So just a little bit of black on my brush right now, not painting in all of that blue area, but I'm utilizing the black kind of striped look to again dictate to the viewer what direction these hills are going in. So just bringing this down, going to clean up that top line, and then just putting in a little bit of my black, again bringing this all the way over here just to clean up that little top line. And now that I've got some good black on there, I'm just going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel, pick up some blue and white just to introduce a little bit of additional color into this hill. So it's mostly blue with a little bit of white on my brush. And if you're just seeing black, then definitely wash the black off so you can get some of this variation in the color. And then once you've got this done, we're going to move on to the next little hill below, which is going to be black, blue, and white also, but a little bit lighter version of it. So just making sure I've got some good direction in here so the viewer can really understand what they're seeing, and that these curved marks kind of take them on a journey down these hills. I think that was the intention, just to see the roly-poly nature of these hills that were off in the distance. Again, you can certainly make yours as light or as dark as you want. I think that's looking pretty good, hitting this one over here. And then again, I'm just using blue, black, and white for this next one, but I'm gonna not wash my brush, and I'm just gonna start with some blue and white on my brush to get this in a little bit brighter of a tone so we can see the direction of this one in through here, and just kind of using the tip of my brush to give myself this direction. I'm not covering up that whole black outline on the top of this one, because that is in fact an identifiable little mark from the original painting. So right now just blue and white. I'll pull a little bit of black in if I want to have a little bit of gray in there, but right now just kind of using the blue and white. So now that I've done that, I'm going to pick up just a teeny tiny bit of black just to make sure that I've got a little bit of maybe that gray look to it, and maybe a little bit more white in through here. And then once you've got this hill done, we're going to go ahead and do the little treetops. So the treetops are going to be with the same brush. So wash and dry this brush, and it's going to be green, yellow, and white. And I like to do this with all those colors on my brush at the same time. So every time I go to pick up paint, I'm going to pick up a combination of green, yellow, and white. And so sometimes I might have more green, sometimes I might have more yellow, sometimes I might have more white. And when I do this, I'm again doing this arcing type of line, but in a very carefree way. So I don't cover up all of those black marks that we made, but I definitely do it so you can see the green, yellow, and white as well, but I do it so you can also see some of those blacks. So just very carefree. I'm not concentrating on, okay, this one has to be exactly with this one has to be exactly with this one. That's not how the original was. It was very carefree and just an impressionistic type of style. So that's what I'm trying to accomplish. So just messy, making some of that black still evident, but still allowing for these kind of curved type of lines at the top to give you the illusion that these might be the little treetops. So green, yellow, and white. I'm going to do this little area over here. Again, just carefree. That's the name of this game. Don't think about it too hard. Just let that brush give you that little movement that you're looking for. And then we are going to be utilizing our large brush for the next step. So once you've got your hills and your treetops or bushes done, you can put the medium brush away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint our Christmas tree. We'll be putting lights on it later, but right now I'm just going to be doing the tree. I'm going to be using my large brush. The colors I'm using are black and green. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to put my it's the trunk, but we're not going to see the trunk, so I like to call it a place marker. We're going to put a big line as our place marker where we want the tree, and then we'll be doing kind of the edges, and then we'll dot the inside, and before we know it, we'll have a beautifully shaped, organic looking Christmas tree. So I'm going to start with some black and green on my big brush at the same time. I'm going to be telling myself where I want the center of my tree to be. So I'm going to have mine, I would say the top of my tree is going to be just a little bit taller than this one, and maybe crossing over this little star a bit. So I'm really just going to kind of draw myself a line down to the bottom of my canvas. So as you go through this process, you're probably going to be covering up part of this little area in through here. You might cover up a little bit of your tree, your stars. So don't feel like you have to work yourself around these. If you cover over some of them, that's okay. It's, you could put a star somewhere else or just let it happen. So now that I've got that place marker in order, I'm going to just kind of reload my brush. I want to give myself an outline for the edges of the tree. So mine is intended to resemble a pine tree, which traditionally is a long triangle. So I'm going to have my tree narrow at the top and wider at the bottom. But again, I'm going to want it to look pretty organic, so I'm going to have kind of ruffled edges along the sides. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to dot down from the top. I want the top to remain nice and pointy, and then I'm just going to kind of dot out these kind of jagged little edges that come out in various directions. Maybe one kind of pokes in front of that star, and as you can see, I'm kind of making it a little bit wider as I come down into the base of the painting in through here. You can even bring it depending on how far over you have these in through here, you can strategically bring some branches nice and close to those, so that way you don't have to worry about covering those up later. And then every time I go to pick up paint after this, I'm going to alternate picking up green one time and black the next. So without washing my brush, I just picked up a little bit of green paint, and I'm going to start giving myself a little bit of an outline over here. And now I'm going to pick up a little bit of black paint and just keep on doing that outline, so to speak, for now. And then once I've got my outline on, and again, you can have these little edges going out every which way. I'm giving them a little bit of, you know, some areas are coming out a little bit further than others. Some areas are coming out at different angles. It's okay, whatever happens, happens. Now that I've got the left and the right done, all I really need to do is dot the inside. So I'm not going to over dot it, so that way I can maintain some light spots and dark spots. And by over dotting it, I'm talking about sitting in one area and dotting it 1,000 times so it all blends together. I don't want all my colors to blend together, so I'm going to just kind of sporadically put some black. I just picked up some green. I'm going to put some green in through here. I'm going to pick up, you know, a little bit more black and put some black here. So that way I've got these, you know, light spots and dark spots that as they dry are going to look pretty darn natural underneath my lights that I'll be putting on later. And that's all I'm going to do for my tree that'll be underneath all of my beautiful lights that I'm going to put on later. So once you've got your tree done, you can, you know, manipulate it all you want. And then we're going to be utilizing our we're going to use our small brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put your big brush away, take out your small brush, and just making sure I've got all of my background covered here, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to be doing for the next step is we're making ourselves a fun little village. I'm going to be using my small brush, and I'm going to be using probably every color on my palette, and I'll just call them out as I'm going to do them. So the iconic thing in this village is a beautiful church right in the middle of the village. So how I like to approach this village is I start with my church, and then I build some buildings outside of it, and a lot of them are just triangles and rectangles, and we're just going to do rooftops and very simple basic shapes for the village buildings. And I start the whole thing with just white, and then once I've got my buildings in place and I've got my mind set, then I start doing the colors on the buildings and the outlines of the buildings, because the other identifiable thing is you just outline everything with black and it'll look like Van Gogh painted it for you. So it's a really easy way to make a Van Gogh looking painting. Just outline everything with black if you want it in this type of style. So I'm going to start with just white paint. I'm going to do my church first. So my church is going to be the star of the village show. So it's going to be somewhere in through here, and the steeple goes way above this this hill in through here. So I'm going to start down here with just a little bit of a triangle. And as I'm doing this, I'm mindful that I have these bushes and stuff, but I can certainly paint over them. And just kind of incorporate them as the background for my village. So I just started with a little triangle, and then I'm just going to kind of bring this down to the base, something like this. So this will be just the start of my church. And then I'm going to do a very tall, skinny line. So I just put a little bit of watered down white paint on my brush. I'm going to just kind of plan this out somewhere up in through here. I don't push hard with my brush to get this steeple going, and I just kind of draw it right down to the top of that building. And of course you can increase the height of the building if you want. The style of this steeple, I'm going to just bring it out in these little triangles, make it a little bit wider in through here, and then I'm going to get it to go and be more narrow at the top. So I just brought it out a little bit wider as it's coming down towards the top of the building, and it doesn't get much more than that on that pointy part, and of course you can certainly adjust it all you want. I'm going to do the side of this building or the side of the roof, something like this. And as I'm doing this with the white paint, I'm just painting over any little hills that I want to paint or the treetops that I want to paint over, and I keep little spaces between the pieces of the building, so that way when I go to do the outlines with black paint, I can still see the difference between the pieces of the building. So this is another piece of the church that's coming on over in through here. So just giving myself that little triangle and a little piece in through here. So that's kind of in essence the church building itself. Maybe there's a little piece over in through here. And then once I've got my church on here, then the rest of the buildings are just really carefree. They're going to be a lot of just kind of rectangles and triangles and things of that nature that will just kind of sell the story that there's little the tops of buildings. So maybe I'm going to have a little building in through here, so just a little rectangle. This is going to be just the top of it. Maybe we've got little ones that are just going to go off into the distance in through here, just between these trees a little bit, and they're going to just kind of snake and go behind this in through here as if we're kind of like going down the road, I guess. I'm going to have another one that's going to be, they're going to get bigger and bigger as they come down towards the bottom of the village or the canvas in through here. So I'm going to make myself a little top of a building in through here. This is a rooftop, so something like that. And then you'll see when I go to color it in with the various colors, you can really do any type of color to get these buildings on. He used a real muted palette when it came to coloring in these buildings, so you could certainly do the same thing. I'm going to have another rooftop in through here. So again, just these parallelograms for the shape of these buildings as they're coming down towards the end of the canvas. Maybe we're going to have another one in through here. And again, just have fun with these. They don't have to be exactly as mine. You can certainly have yours which way that you would like to. You can have yours taller or shorter. These are just going to look like the little rooftops of buildings that are really close by. Maybe we've got a couple back in through here that are going to show a maybe another street behind here that has some other buildings to it behind this little area in through here. So again, just have fun with it. Yours does not have to be exactly like this one. Mine is definitely not exactly as the original one, but it's a whole lot of fun when you get to kind of just express these carefree, abstract type of impressionistic buildings, because you get to kind of just say, oh, I just want a rooftop, and it's going to give the viewer the information that perhaps there's a little building in there. So feel free to just, have fun with it. Again, I'm just making these little kind of marks. So now that I've got where all my buildings, and you can have more or less, whatever you want, I'm going to start to just kind of color them in. So I'm going to, they don't get a lot of color, I can tell you that. I'm going to put some red and white and blue on my brush, and I'm really just going to have some fun with some of this darker kind of muted color. So red, white, and blue are on my brush. Maybe we'll have, this one's going to have some stripes going down this way. And he had a lot of striped buildings. He had a lot of they were just really soft, muted colors throughout these buildings. So don't feel like you have to make them all the same color. Don't feel like they all have to have the same texture to them. You can, I just picked up some just blue paint, so I'm putting some blue stripes on this roof, and I'm really just giving it this kind of, all of them have this like striped kind of look to them. Not all of them, but a lot of them do this. I just picked up black and blue on that one. Again, you can make them look whatever way you want. We got to put a little bit down in through here. Maybe we'll put a little bit in through here. And once I start to outline them with the black around them, they'll look a lot better. So I've got green and a little bit of white on my brush right now, just giving myself some stripes on this roof, and maybe we got some on this roof. My church I'm going to do with maybe a little bit of blue and white. Just give myself some blue and white stripes down that church. That doesn't have a whole lot of color. I feel like I have a naked area on the ground here, so I'm just going to pick up some green and give myself some little, almost like grass or something in through here. Maybe a little bit of green, maybe a little bit of blue and black, just to give myself, I don't want to put some buildings there, so you could even do some more bushes, I suppose. I just wanted to fill that in a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up some black, give myself some windows and doors and outlines. So I know that I want a big window in the middle of my church in through here. So just black paint right now. Got a little door in through here. Going to do some outlines, so I'll outline my every section on my church. And again, I'm not concerned about perfection, just kind of giving myself these outlines in order for the viewer to recognize this as the style of painting that Van Gogh had done. So we can have this great impressionistic kind of representational Christmas holiday type of painting. And again, right now I'm just outlining my rooftops, or my buildings. So I have black paint on my brush. If at any time you feel like you want a little window or a little door, just pop in a black mark and ta-da, you have a little mark. You can paint over your black area or your white outlines if you want to. That was, again, just my method. That's when I paint this painting, that's usually where my head goes. I do everything with that kind of light white, and then I sit here and I just kind of outline all my objects. And if I need to put any other information in after I've got these black outlines on here, then I will. So I know I'm going to want to add some little bits of holiday lights onto this, so that'll add some bit of structure to it. On the steeple, I like to put a little bit some decoration part in here, so I just put that, and then some little lines coming down in through here. And of course this too would get an outline all around the edges of it, which could help to clean up the edge of your steeple if you need to. I just try and not have too much paint on my brush. If you need to use a littler brush, you could certainly do that. But again, just don't worry about the perfectness of it. I just don't press hard when I'm going about doing this, and it will, give me a thin line, but again, I'm not terribly concerned if it's not super duper thin. And then I'm gonna wash and dry my brush and put some holiday lights on. So washing and drying my brush. And I know on my big Christmas tree, I'm gonna be using some orange. So I think I'm gonna just pick up some orange, give myself some little holiday dots, like they're lighting up or being lit up by some fun decorations all along my, little village in through here. And you could really have fun with making these whatever way you want. So if you want to have some little garland or something, feel free to do it. If you want to add additional little Christmas trees in your village, go for it. Just have fun with it. I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to pick up some yellow paint now. Maybe we've got some little yellow holiday lights up on the steeple top. Maybe we've got some yellow lights adorning the rooftop on our church. So just little tiny dots is what I'm going for. Maybe even, oops, almost lost my canvas there. Maybe you even add little windows of sorts. You could, so if you have the yellow and the white, you could do just like little windows in your buildings. Maybe there's some lights on in one of the buildings, so it's got a little, a yellow and white light. So again, just have fun with this. If you want to do any additional things to it, feel free to do so, but I'm thinking that that's looking pretty good for me at this point. I might tweak it a little bit more, but it's making me happy as is, so I'm just gonna roll with it as it is. So, and we're gonna be using our medium brush for the next step. So once you got your little village done, you could put your small brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're gonna put the lights on our tree and the light in our star. I think that's the right way to say it. The bright light that's going to be in the middle of that star. So I'm going to be using my medium brush. I'm going to be using yellow, white, orange, and red. And I'm going to start with my bright light in my star. So I'm going to pick up some white paint. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself a little nucleus or center area in through here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it in each direction. So I've got my white paint on my brush, and I'm going to just kind of pull it as far down as I want to. And then I'm going to do the same thing up top. And what I do is I let off on my pressure as I'm getting towards that tip. And you can have this in whatever kind of intensity that you want. You can have one side brighter or darker than the other. You can adjust it to be, you know, in a different style of a star. You can really have this doing whatever you would like it to. So I'm just going to kind of go with my white paint to start here. Maybe I think I want this a little bit more intense. And then once I've got my white paint, what I'll do is I'm having fun with this star. I'm having difficulty talking and doing it at the same time though. So once I've got my white paint on here, I'm pulling out these little tiny ones in between. I'm going to pick up some yellow paint without washing my brush. So right now I have yellow paint on my brush. I want my center to be the brightest or the whitest. So I'm just going to be using this yellow on top of some of my white streaks or beams. So I'm just adding a little bit of yellow to the beams of this light that's coming from our big star in the middle of our sky. And then once I've got that, if I feel I need to amp up that center anymore, you can certainly wash and dry your brush and then just add a little bit more white paint to the center. And you can just kind of keep amping up the brightness of that white in the center until it is as bright as you want. And you can certainly keep fiddling with this as much as you want, but I'm going to move right on to my beautiful lights on my tree. So I am going to be using all kinds of colors. So I'm going to start with just some red paint. So I've got red paint on my brush. I love when I am doing the twinkling of lights in a holiday tree to put as many as I can. And I am using a good amount of paint, and I'm really just using the tip of my brush. And one of my tricks when I'm doing lights on a tree is to make some of the lights go out further than the tree. So what that's going to give the illusion of is maybe them twinkling from the other side of the tree, or, you know, it's just giving it that extra little bit of a dimensional or glowing type of element that, to me, when I look at photographs of holiday trees that are adorned with all of these lights, I always feel like you can see the lights outside of the tree for some reason. It's just the observation that I tend to see. So that's my red. I'm just going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel. Now I'm picking up some of my orange color. And because we are painting this on a dark base, what's going to happen is the intensity of these colors will change as the paint dries. So the thicker the paint is on a particular dot, the more vibrant it's going to be when it dries, because the opacity will be higher the thicker the paint is. So if you get done doing some of these dots and you give it a little while and they dry and they're duller than you want them to be, that just means that you need to do either another layer to them or incorporate a little bit more white into the equation. But you can, you know, that's just the nature of the beast when you're working on a dark layer like this. Another alternative is you could do them all white first, and then you come back and put the color on top of the white ones, which will mean that the white will be the primer coat for them, and then you can put the bright color on top of them, and it would be as true to the color as it can be because it'll have that white base on it. So now I'm going to be picking up some yellow. So I'm just quickly washing and drying my brush, and I'm picking up some yellow. Now I know my yellow will be very translucent if I don't add white to it. So I'm going to take a tiny bit of white and add it to my yellow. So what this is going to do, I don't want it to be any dark or any lighter than my yellow, but I don't want it to be super duper see-through. So for me, I just add a touch of white to that mixture, and I know that that will help as this yellow is on here to make it look even brighter. You can also use different application processes. I just use my regular brush, but a lot of people I've seen do, they sometimes use the butt end of their paintbrush to get very systematic, really circular shapes. I tend to visually lean towards very organic looking things that are not always perfectly proportioned or sized from one to the other. So to me, I like to visually see them in different sizes. So that's where my brush will give me the effect that I visually like. But if you really like your things to be very perfect and organized and have, you know, a systematic approach to them, you can utilize a tool that will give you the same size dots on every single one that you do. And then the last color that I'm going to do is white. So white always makes my holiday trees sparkle. So you could wash and dry your brush or just use it with that yellow on it and just pick up some white. And another trick I have is when I load my brush, I spin it on the side of my palette. That points my brush. So if your brush is splaying out on you, you can just kind of repoint it on the side by spinning it on the side of your palette. And the white to me again is going to make it twinkle. Maybe you want it to look like there's snow on there, so you could be a little bit more aggressive with the white, but for me I'm just using it as another color of the light or another little piece of detail that can make my tree sparkle just a little bit more. And if your lights bump into one another and you have one on top of the other, that again is going to make it look really nice and natural. And then I'm just going to kind of keep dotting away until I feel like I have as many lights on my tree as I want. And then we have one tiny little step left to go, and it's going to be with your small brush. So once you've got all of your lights on your tree, you've decorated anything else that you want to, you can put this medium brush away, take out your tiny brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I usually, I'm going to use my small brush. I usually sign in the bottom left or the bottom right. I'm going to be signing mine with black. I'm going to go bottom left. I think I'm going to put it, I have this little spot right here that I think it would be perfect. So I'm going to just sign my initials. You can certainly sign your first name or the date or a symbol or whatever you want your identifying mark to be is totally fine. And that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a very festive image, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.